everybody, welcome back to Cosplay University. I'm Adonis Cosplay, and today we're going to go over how to make some patterns for clothes. So if you are making your own costume maybe for the first time, or maybe you're a seasoned cosplayer, it's always important to have patterns for what you're making. Now you have a couple options when it comes to getting patterns. You can either A, buy them, which can be expensive and sometimes they don't match exactly what you're wanting, or you can make your own, which is what we're going to do today. And that way you know that it's going to fit you exactly the way you want it to, and it's going to be shaped perfectly for your cosplay. The things that you guys are going to need for this tutorial are something to mark on. Right here I have a big roll of butcher paper. You can use a big roll of butcher paper, you can use newspaper, you can use pieces of copy paper taped together, whatever you need to do to get something long enough that's going to fit your body and whatever piece you're trying to make. You're going to need some scissors, obviously, and then you're going to need something to mark with to trace out whatever piece of clothing you're doing. The last thing that you're going to need is a piece of clothing that matches what you're trying to pattern, that fits you really well. So if you have a t-shirt that fits you awesome and that's exactly the size that you want, use that t-shirt. We're going to just trace around it. So I have a t-shirt here that I'm going to use in my example. You can use pants, you can do socks, you can do hats, whatever you want. Just make sure you have something that fits you exactly the way you want it to, because that's what we're going to make a pattern for. Let's go.
The first thing you want to do is lay out a piece of paper that's big enough for the clothes that you're going to pattern. Today I'm going to show you how to do a t-shirt, but this works with pretty much any piece of clothing that you want to do. Lay your clothing down. In this instance, I laid my t-shirt on my paper and I'm going to go ahead and start tracing around it. If you're doing a shirt like this, be sure to trace around each different section. So the shirt main body is one section and then each sleeve is another. You only have to do one sleeve though, because you can just mirror it on the other side. So when you're tracing the body, make sure that you still trace where the armholes would be, but you don't go around the sleeve. So go ahead and take your pen, mark all the way around the shirt, and we'll do the sleeve separately. It's only really necessary to pattern out half of a t-shirt if that's what you're making. The reason is because they're the same on both sides, so when you make one half of the pattern and then you lay it down on a piece of fabric that's folded over and you trace it and cut it out, then you have two equal sides that are symmetrical. Rather than trying to make them symmetrical in the pattern, you know that they're going to be the same when you fold the fabric in half. It's really important to write down if you added seam allowance onto your pattern. If you write it down, it'll help you remember when you use it later. So again, here I am tracing the sleeve. I'm only going to trace one side of it, and then at the top where the fabric folds over to the other side or the back side of the shirt, I'm just going to draw that line straight across, and I'm going to write on the pattern that that is the fold line, so I know to fold the fabric in half right there when I'm laying out my pattern. Now be careful when you're drawing the curved line. You're going to have to go back and double check to make sure everything lines up multiple times. That way you know exactly the shape that you're trying to make. Once you have all of your pieces traced, you can go ahead and cut them out. If you are making a shirt, it's important to go back and mark where the front collar will be. Most shirts have a lower front collar than they do a back collar, so when you're making a pattern you have to account for both. And when you lay out your pattern on the fabric that you're going to be using, you have to make sure that you're using the correct one. So if you're using the pattern for the back, make sure that you make the collar higher, and if you're using the pattern for the front, the collar will be lower. Remember, you can use this same patterning technique for almost any type of clothing. Right here I'm making a pattern for some pants, so if you needed pants for your costume, whether that be tight ones or sweatpants or whatever it may be, just take a pair that you like that fits you, lay it down, pattern it out, and you'll be good to go on making your own set of pants. Again, this can be done with whatever. If you need to make certain sort of tops or armor pieces or dresses or what have you, it can all be done using this patterning process. The last step in pattern making is applying your pattern to your fabric. So here I have a piece of fabric folded in half, and I lined up that fold with the fold edge of my pattern. From there, you can go ahead and trace your pattern that you made onto your fabric, but don't forget to add seams, because if you didn't add it in your pattern, you want to make sure you add a little space around the outside of your pattern to accommodate for seams, and that can be different for everybody. But if you don't, it's going to be too small and you're going to have to end up remaking it. So always add more seam than you think you need. You can always take it in but you cannot add extra fabric.
Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial on how to make patterns. I hope it really helped you guys out. I hope you can take what you learned here and apply it to other situations and other costumes. So now that you have a pattern for your costume, go start making something. See you in the next class.